The New York Yankees. This has been a horrendous second half of a season. And it could all be fixed if the Yankees could just win divisional games. This weekend is so very important for this team to stay pat in the division. The Blue Jays are playing pretty decent baseball right now. The Orioles are tailing along. And then there's the Rays that are 6 games behind the Yankees, and they're playing them in a 3-game series. And last night's game was absolutely horrendous for the New York Yankees. They cannot score in men in scoring position. They have had problems with this. Losing Andrew Benintendi to a wrist injury was a significant loss, especially him being one of the better hitters on this roster. I don't know what's going on. What are the Yankees as an organization and a team right now as we speak? Are they a playoff team? Are they a team that's going to lose the division at the end of the season, squeak into the playoffs as a wild card team, lose in a 3-game series, and completely lose Aaron Judge in the offseason to a $300 million contract, the MVP? Because that's where it's going. Trading for Frankie Montes has not worked. Look what Sears is doing right now with the Oakland Athletics. Mm-hmm. He's 5-1 with a 2.68 ERA and a whip almost under 1. Jordan Montgomery, an ERA in the 1s right now since he's gone to the Cardinals, a whip under 1. He's been one of the best pitchers in baseball in the last 3 weeks. And your guy that you traded for to send Montgomery to the Cardinals is still sitting on the bench because he's not healthy. Now, I don't know what Bader's going to be as a New York Yankee, and I'm not going to take shots at Brian Cashman because this man knows what he's doing as a GM. But why would you trade for a player that's not healthy, who's not going to be a part of this team until the end of the season? And you don't even know if he's going to make your playoff roster. This team can't beat the good teams. Go look at the Yankees' record against teams over 500 this year. It's horrible. I'm worried. I wasn't worried in the beginning of the All-Star break where the Yankees lost 7 or 8 games. I'm worried about this team.
Especially the second half, they're a lot worse. They're overall 41-33, but look at the second half, losing 2 out of 3 to Seattle, losing to Houston, and now the Rays series after this start. Not a good sign. The Yankees have also had their issues in one-run games this year, only 24-21 in one-run games this year. Now, granted, the Mets aren't much better, 19-15, but still, the Yankees have had a lot more offensive woes, so they're losing 1-0, 2-1 a lot of the time, and that's not a good sign for an offense that's supposed to have all this firepower.
This roster should be scoring at least 5 runs a game. This roster in the second half of the season is averaging 3 runs or less in games.
And you know where the Yankees are since July 5th? If you were just track American League East teams, they're 4th in the total record. The Orioles actually have the best record, then the Rays and the Blue Jays, and then the Yankees.
It's horrible. And a team that was, 13 games in the loss column after the All-Star break is now 5 with Tampa. That's scary. If you're a Yankee fan, I would be worried because you have to play Tampa at least one more time before the season's over. And you could only be 3 games or 2 games ahead of them when you're going in to Yankee Stadium playing the Tampa Bay Rays at the end of the season.
And you would hope if you're a Yankee fan that you did not get exposed by those other teams, the Astros, the Mariners especially, and maybe the Rays too, if they can make a surge towards the end of the season and get some offensive players back, because they could be a sleeper in that case. We said them just go to the World Series just
They're
2 years
exposed.
ago.
They can't score, Speedy. They're keeping teams under 3 or 2 runs. It doesn't matter. They can't score. This roster, which is probably their strength, is their lineup. They can't score runs. They can't score runs with men in scoring position. You have Giancarlo, you have Aaron Judge, you had Andrew Benintendi. You have a very good middle of the lineup. DJ LeMahieu is not having one of those seasons, but he's a good hitter. This lineup is good enough. This lineup is way better than the Mets. The Mets are getting 4 or 5 runs a game. The Yankees, they can't score 1. It's horrible. And this has a lot to do with managing. This has a lot to do with Aaron Boone. And I'm sorry. Aaron Boone, who was definitely a Manager of the Year recipient going into the All-Star break, he's now out as Manager of the Year.
He might be the 3rd finalist.
He's not even going to be a finalist.
Yeah, it's got to be the Orioles or Mariners.
This team is completely tumbled. This team has sunk in the second half of the season. To think that he is going to win or even be on that list of Managers of the Year, he'll be lucky if the Yankees fall out of first place that he has a job next season. Because if they make the playoffs and they squeeze in as a wild card, you have to look at firing him.
You're looking at a statistical collapse that was, I don't know if it was as bad as what the Mets had last year, but not far behind.
I don't care if you make the playoffs. You play to make the playoffs and win. That's what you do as a Yankee. The season means nothing. It's all about the playoffs. And by the way, why is Donald Donaldson opening his mouth on the field. As soon as he opened his mouth on the field with the pitcher, Spriggs, he's arguing when he was on the bench when the Yankees were up. And then all of a sudden, the next inning when he was on the field, he had 2 errors. Donaldson doesn't shut his mouth. Dude, you're not the MVP you were. You were brought to the team to be a good defensive player at third base. You're not even better than what Gio Urshela was. And you haven't hit. Something that we thought you were going to be better at, you haven't been. So what have you done for the Yankees? And the Yankees have you for another year. And all you do is open your mouth and say racist things on the field. Play the damn game. You're an embarrassment. I am so sick of the New York Yankees and being a Yankee fan and sitting here making excuses for them anymore. This team needs to start playing. Aaron Boone, stop crying to the press. Stop saying we need to figure things out. You've had time to figure things out. This roster is good enough. Even losing Andrew Benintendi yesterday, you still should be winning. And why isn't your rookie, Pereza, on the field? Why did you call him up? Why is Kiner Falefa playing at second base or wherever he's playing last night, and you have Torres playing at short? What the hell are you doing?
You know who calls up prospects and actually plays them? The Mets. Unfortunately for them, one got hurt this week. Brett Beatty now out for the season with a finger injury. Injuring it on a fielding play, so definitely not ideal.
He wasn't looking good either.
No, he was in a bit of a slump.
He was in a slump.
But they had so many other third base injuries, and Escobar's not hitting, so that was not...
He hit it. 2-run home run last night.
Finally, about time, but he was in a bit of a slump too. But the Mets did take 2 out of 3 this week from the Dodgers, which was very promising. Buck Showalter, very unconventional move, bringing in Edwin Diaz early in the 8th inning, which did not look good for him. It was probably the worst he's looked in about 3 months, which definitely is not ideal, but they were able to hang on. Shout out to Adam Ottavino, ex-Yankee, who's actually pitched well for the Mets in the second half, and that's a good sign. I criticize the Mets for not getting more bullpen help, but I'll give Seth Lugo and Adam Ottavino a lot of credit. Both of them have bounced back nicely in the second half of the season so far. The Mets still have a bit of a lefty concern, which I think is something that could hurt them in the playoffs. Right now, David Peterson and Joely Rodriguez, forgot about that, as the only lefty pitchers on the roster as of now. We'll see on the September call-ups. Francisco Alvarez, he had an injury, might be out another week, so he's not going to be on the initial September roster call-up, but hoping that he could come in. But Mets winning close games, which is a good sign for them against a very loaded Dodgers team. A Dodgers team that came into the Mets series 41-9 since the All-Star break. That's got to be an encouraging sign for the Mets going forward. They played very well in close games down the stretch.
When we come back, Speedy, what do we got?
Wrench time!
Here on the Weekend Crunch.
It's time for Crunch Time.
Read the time. Gotta see the pitch.
All right, let's start with NFL opening kickoff. Bills at the Rams on Thursday night. Buy or sell. Both Cooper Kupp and Stephon Diggs will have 5 or more catches and 100 or more yards.
I am going to buy it. I think both guys, Cooper Kupp and Stephon Diggs, are 2 of the more prolific offensive firepower players on the field every single week by week. I mean, Buffalo with Josh Allen, fantastic arm. I mean, this is a great Thursday night football game. That's what you want to see. The Rams and obviously the Buffalo Bills, it's going to be high-flying and fun to watch. It's going to be in L.A. I don't know who's going to have the advantage in this game. I would love to see Josh Allen go over there into L.A. and knock off the world champion L.A. Rams when they get their ring. But nevertheless, I absolutely am going to buy it.
I am going to disagree. I'm going to sell it. Jalen Ramsey on Stephon Diggs, I think he'll be able to limit them enough. I think Stephon Diggs will have 60, 70 yards in this game and maybe a touchdown, but I don't see 100. Cooper Kupp definitely will. The Bills, without Tre'Davious White, it's going to be hard for them to stop a guy that had almost 2,000 yards last year, but I don't think Diggs does. I am going to sell it. So from Thursday to Monday night, and this time will be college football, number 4, Clemson at Georgia Tech. Buy or sell. They will win by over 20 points.
Sell. I do not believe Clemson is going to do that. They have a great quarterback, and they have a team this year. It's something that Clemson had problems. This was a very good recruiting class last year. Last year, they made a lot of mistakes, and they had a lot of bad losses. But this year, I think this is a team that's definitely one of the favorites to get into the playoffs and make some noise. So I am going to sell it.
I am going to sell it as well. Georgia Tech was an improved program last year. They didn't make a bowl game, but they made a lot of good strides from where they were last year. And Clemson as well, who have some confidence in their quarterback. He didn't look very good last year. And here's the biggest thing. Brent Venables, their longtime defensive coordinator, one of the best in the country now coaching at Oklahoma. I think that defense is going to take a hit too. I don't like them for the college football playoff. They'll win this game, but they're not going to win by 20. I am going to sell it. Donovan Mitchell opt out of the Cavs contract after 3 years.
Absolutely buy it. I really do believe he wanted to be a New York Knick. He will be about 28, going to be 29 when he can opt out of the contract. And I do believe one way or another he will be a New York Knick. So I am going to buy it.
I'm going to buy it too. The salary cap's going to be vacant hard. Be able to make that money. Donovan Mitchell's going to ask for a lot for that next big contract. I don't know if Cleveland's going to be able to give it to him. So I'm going to buy it as well. Buy or sell. Jimmy G will start at least 5 games for the 49ers this season.
Oh, absolutely buy it. I cannot believe that Trey Lance is the end-all, be-all to this team. I think Trey Lance is going to affect Kyle Shanahan keeping his job in the long run. I think it was a bad move. I think it was a bad trade, giving up all those first-round draft picks for a quarterback that really didn't have a season the year before because of COVID. So I am absolutely going to buy that Jimmy G is going to start at least 5 or more games this year.
I'm going to buy it too. I think Trey Lance, I'm more worried about the injury with him. I think he is raw. He will start a little slow. I don't think he'll get benched, but I do think he'll get hurt at some point. Jimmy G, I think they could trust him and they'll keep him in for the hot stretch. They don't have a bad game and they'll bring Lance back in. I'll buy that as well, but for different reasons. All right, buy or sell. Right now, barely over 50%. Edwin Diaz will keep his strikeout rate over 50% for the remainder of the season.
I would buy it. He's done it all season. He had a bad 8th inning. I believe the way the Mets and the way Buck Showalter protects him the way he is, the way he has been all season long, I think he's going to continue at the pace, so I'm going to buy it.
I'm going to buy it too. He's been so efficient when he is on, and even when he has been off, it's just been in those unconventional roles. That's why Luis Rojas was fired last year. Don't bring him in a non-safe situation, and Buck learned that on Thursday. I'm going to buy that. He's so efficient when he's on. All right, back to college football. Ohio State covers minus 17.5 against Notre Dame at home.
Absolutely buy it. Ohio State's one of the best teams in all of the country, and I think they're my favorites of winning the whole thing this year. I think they have so much depth defensively. Their secondary is fantastic. I think they have about 5 or 6 players right now that are first-round talents going into the draft next year. They're going to be fun to watch. They have a great quarterback, great running game, great offensive line. They have 2 offensive linemen that could be first-round talent, so I'm going to buy it.
I'm going to buy it too. Notre Dame, new coach. A lot of the players lost on the offensive side of the ball. Ohio State did not lose as much as you would have thought from last year. I understand the receivers. A lot of them got drafted, but Jackson Smith and Najigba, I think, is more talented than Olave anyway. He might not be within Garrett Wilson, but we'll see at the end of the year. But they have a lot of talent still on this roster, so I am 100% going to buy the Notre Dame, who doesn't win in big games, they're going to lose by 17 or more. Kyrie Irving will play with LeBron James at some point during the Lakers contract.
Sell. Not going to happen. If it was going to happen, it would have happened already this offseason. Kyrie is there right now, at least for this year. And even when he becomes a free agent, if he opts out of whatever, he doesn't take the extension that the Nets eventually offer him, I don't think the Lakers have enough money to sign him. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think he goes somewhere else. So I'm going to sell it.
I'm going to sell it too. I think the Lakers at this point are
they don't have the money.
They're kind of stuck as it is. I think they want to avoid that kind of drama. I think LeBron wants to stay there to get his sons there as well. I think they're going to have a hard time trying to maybe lure Kyrie there too, who never knows what he wants.
There's no way the Lakers are going to get Bronny there. There will be other teams looking at Bronny and deciding what they're going to do, no matter what happens in college or even in the G League. If you could bring Bronny there and bring LeBron James with him, I think teams are going to look at that in the first 10 picks, even if they don't think he's a top 10 talent. So I think no matter what, Bronny's going to be in the top 10 or top 15 because it will draw LeBron James to come there.
All right, last one. One of the 4 teams that were in conference championship games last year, the Rams, 49ers, Bengals, and Chiefs. One of them will be in the Super Bowl again.
I'm going to sell it. You just don't know. And to me, with the Buccaneers, if Tom Brady's 100% healthy and with some of the acquisitions that they made this offseason, if Jensen comes back, I really believe the Buccaneers are going to be very hard to beat in the playoffs. So I am going to sell that.
I'm going to buy it. I think there's just a lot of big question marks in the NFC that Tampa's with the defense. Will it be the same as 2 years ago? The Packers with their wide receivers. I think the Rams are just pretty comfortable. Repeat bet. And if the 49ers get great quarterback play from Trey Lance, they have the roster to do it too. Definitely in the AFC, I think you'll definitely see something different. I could see the Ravens. I could see the Bills. The Chargers, if they can overcome their close game woes. There's a lot of teams that could definitely do that.
Don't forget about Vegas.
You have not much trust in Josh McDaniels. That's another question.
No, I have trust in their team.
That's fair.
I like Derek Carr.
That's fair. I think you might see one different one there, but I definitely could see the Rams going back, so I am going to buy it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for our show. Shout out to USA Today baseball writer and reporter Steve Garner. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Before we go, I just want to say something about Lou Lamariello. For all you Islander fans, or even you Islander haters, to say that Lou Lamariello has failed this offseason is crazy. Because this roster is going to be healthy this year. They are going to have home games in month number 1. They are not going to have that COVID woes that they had last year. Bodie Wild actually could play on this roster one way or another because he doesn't need to get the vaccination now that COVID has died down for the NHL. There's a lot of good things that could happen this year. At the trade deadline, they could get anybody that becomes available. And to sit here today and say that this team cannot score enough and cannot win like they did 2 years ago when they were in back-to-back years of an Eastern Conference championship and they were one goal away from going to the finals and possibly winning the Stanley Cup against Montreal, I think this roster is more than good enough to win. A lot of writers, a lot of people that hate the Islanders, picks the Islanders to surprise everybody and be not only a playoff team, one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference this year.